Greetings all, this is Hairy Nick. I'm joined by Justin.
Hello!
We are back on FFG's Star Wars Legion page because we have a couple of new articles. Now, while I was away up north in the hot land of Queensland, FFG dropped an article called Pitched Battle. I did not have the equipment to record a video up there, but I did do a quick rundown of what was detailed in that article on my Facebook page. So right now, if you guys want to make sure you don't miss anything, go to my Facebook page, give it a like, because in some situations, I may bring up some topics there. Indeed, I do a lot of prep for videos on there, like I ask questions and I get video ideas on there. So please, head over there, have a look at that if you want to see my details on Pitched Battle. But for today, we're going to take a look at Battlefield Recon, defining the battlefield in Star Wars Legion. This looks really cool. This looks really unique.
It's a very interesting way to have a game set up.
Yeah. It's FFG Star Wars, so everything's card-based, of course. And it's a unique way in setting up the battlefield. Before we move on to actually how we choose what happens with the battlefield, let's just talk about the beginning of this article, because we do have a few things talked about. It does mention that we get some terrain pieces out of the box, which is awesome. Probably these barriers or something like. We'll see that when we can start doing some unboxings. That'll be cool. But it also mentions that you and your opponent set up the battlefield with terrain and that kind of stuff, but it doesn't tell you how that's done, which to me indicates there is no stipulation on how that's done. Usually with this kind of thing, you just take it in turns. You place a building, I place a building, you place a building, that kind of stuff.
Until you run out or you think there's enough.
That's it. Or you go to your LGS and they just have tables set up. It's probably one of those two things. But in any case, I don't think it's something they really need to stipulate heavily in the rules. I think it is in some ways better if that's just kept loose.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't think there's too many ways to abuse that. And the main reason for that is there is a sort of a random element into the way you have to choose your objectives and the conditions of the battlefield and deployment, which is indeed what this article is talking about. Let's scroll down and take a look at this, because we have three different cards, and we're just seeing three of them here up on the screen now, that basically dictate how the battle runs. First up, we have our objective card, and here's an example here. Intercept the transmissions. Setup. Place one objective token in the center of the battlefield, then place one objective token halfway between the center and the left, and then one center and right. So three evenly throughout the battlefield. At the ends of rounds 2 and 4, each player gains a victory token for each objective token they control. At the end of the game, each player gains 2 tokens for each objective they control. A player controls an objective if they have one or more trooper unit leaders at range 1 of that token than another player. So it's just capturing the hills, basically.
Yeah.
Capture the important points. This is very common in tabletop games. Makes a whole heap of sense. There's a few of these cards actually showing up. I'll show you this as well. We have Breakthrough. At the end of the game, each player gains 1 victory point token for each of their unit leaders within an enemy deployment zone.
That's cool.
It's really cool, and it really plays around with the deployment zones, which we're going to look at next. Suddenly, the different deployment zones you pick is going to have a big bearing on whether or not you want this card to be in play, which is scary and interesting.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Actually, we were talking earlier about the fact that, like, imagine if you had Snowtroopers and Vader.
Yeah.
But if you had the Snowtroopers and Vader, you could theoretically just use one of the ones where they're quite close to each other.
Exactly
as
right.
As opposed to the...
We were talking about Snowtroopers and Vader because they're quite slow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Snowtroopers can move twice and shoot. I appreciate that, but all in all, they have to use both their actions, and they're very limited to what they can do. Where most units can just move range of 2. Snowtroopers and Vader can only move a range 1 movement. So perhaps in that situation, Breakthrough would be less appealing. Perhaps Breakthrough would be better if you had speeders, either bikes or snow speeders or something like that. So it's something to think about when you make an army. Do you want to make it versatile and can take on a bunch of different situations? Or do you want an army that's geared towards one thing and you will try and force a situation to happen when you deploy? That's interesting. Let's move on to the last kind of... second kind of card, I apologise. This is the deployment zone card, and it basically dictates where your units deploy. Fair and simple.
You can also see on them numbers, those are the range.
Yeah, so like a range 3 from either end of the long end of the table. By the way, in case you guys weren't aware, the table is 6 foot by 3 foot. So it does matter the orientation of this. You don't go on the short side. There is a deployment card which goes via the short sides. The Long March, as the name suggests, goes lengthways. There's also this card which looks really interesting called Disarray, which you have the corners each.
Yeah.
That looks hilarious. And this is what we're talking about with Breakthrough. This is the kind of deployment card where Breakthrough might be easier, quote unquote, or easier for both you and your opponent. Perhaps Disarray is a card that you want if you have slower units. That way Breakthrough isn't so bad. Imagine Capture the Transmission with Disarray. You are pouncing on them in round 1 and you are just blast of fire everywhere. Disarray looks like a card that's just going to be a heap of fun whenever you draw it. It's really, really cool. And I just love the idea behind these. The last kind of card we have is condition cards, and that basically is a game state effect that happens across the entire game. Limited visibility, for example. During the first round, each unit's line of sight beyond range 2 is blocked, and during the second round, each unit's line of sight beyond range 3 is blocked. This, to me, it strikes me as something as useful if you have faster units, because that means that you can't get hit by long-range bombardment in the first couple of rounds, and you can position yourself well to pounce in round 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just the first couple of rounds, which is really cool. We also have clear conditions, which takes no effect whatsoever. That might be important if you don't want the conditions hampering your units for whatever reason. You might have units that struggle more with that. Hostile environment. Trooper units whose unit leader is not in base contact with a piece of terrain cannot remove suppression tokens during the end phase.
This one's like that.
Yeah.
Full on.
This is what you want if you have Vader, because of how suppressy he is and how he doesn't care about suppression himself.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things which you might try and force if you have the right kind of situation. But if you have lots of rebel troopers, you're probably not going to want hostile environments. That could be bad, for example. And that's the 3 condition cards that we have shown up. So what happens? This is how the start of the game works. We have a nice grid of cards here, and these are all the cards we've seen. Apart from, we have key positions, and the text is a bit hard to read, but we also have major offensive, where you have a big chunk of each corner for the deployment as well. These are the 3 condition cards we saw, so we know what they say. But basically what happens is you draw 3 cards at random and put it in a grid like this. 3 objectives, 3 deployment, and 3 conditions. Then, alternating between the 2 players, you choose a card in the leftmost part of each row, and you put a veto on it. You say, we don't want this. You turn it face down, you put a no counter on it. It hasn't quite explained how that works. I'm going to guess you just flip it face down. That makes the most sense to me. And then it alternates between all the players until each of you have, as this article states, had a chance to flip the card face down. So I'm assuming you can pass. That's what I would assume in case you like all of the cards on the left. Because what happens at the end is all the face-up cards on the leftmost part of each row is the cards that you use to set up the game. Here's an example. This player vetoed both of these. This player vetoed both of those. And that's what they chose. So what's going on here is it's not total random. You don't just draw 3 cards and that's it, which I think is good because I think there's a way too much variance in that. That's going to really heavily benefit one player. It is somewhat random, but each player gets a bit of a push, a bit of a nudge in the direction they want to take it.
You get a chance to, put your own 2 cents in.
Exactly right. And I kind of feel like you look at this grid of cards and you want to go, okay, I want this, this, and this. These are the 3 cards I want to be playing with at the end of this setup. And your opponent knocks out one of those cards you wanted, so you have to adapt and go, okay, well, if I don't have this card, I definitely want this card. Or I changed my mind, I want this card instead because that card goes with that card and that kind of stuff. And it sounds really cool. And the key thing about this is it has a little bit of variance, but not much. You have a good amount of pull in the setup of the game. You have the ability to knock out something that is just utterly crippling for your squad. And hopefully you don't build a squad that can't react in several situations, because you obviously need a bit of diversity in your squad.
Yeah.
But you can still kind of tilt towards certain things. You can go Snowtrooper Invader and go slow, punchy units, and then try and force the cards that work well with them. And yeah, that's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
And that's basically what this article's talking about.
I like it.
Yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great concept in setting up games. It feels very FFG. Anyway, guys, that's all for this article. Thanks for watching.
Like and subscribe, like our Facebook.
And we'll catch you later.
Bye.